why do we care about networking skills? Why are we even talking about networking skills in this course? As I understand that what you have been talking about is health policy, right? The thing is, networking skills are going to be key for two reasons in your careers in health policy. The first one is that they will help you get into the job you want. If you want to make meaningful change and you know exactly what type of position you want, networking is the way that you will access those opportunities. And I'll dive into that a little bit today. The second reason is networking and relationship building is a key skill, not only in health policy, but in public health in general, because public health is not something you do from up there in your ivory tower. It's something you do by building collaborations, by building consortiums, by getting things done when there's many competing agendas. And building relationships is key to bringing those people together, to figuring out a way forward all together. So I think those are part of the reasons why I'm here today talking about networking, and I'm sure you'll be able to find more. Karina did a lovely introduction of myself, so I'll skip this one, but do please reach out to me on LinkedIn. Connect with me on LinkedIn. You type Candela Iglesias and I'm about the only one with a weird name out there, so just go ahead and do that. And I'd love to hear more about you and what you do. Would be great if you communicate with me. So I do expect people to be typing in the chat when I ask you to, so we can interact a little bit, okay? Great. So I want to start by testing the chat function and by doing a quick reality check. So how many new people did you talk to in the last month? Can you type that number in the chat? Okay, 30. Someone has an impressive 31, 8, 5 people, 3, 5, 6. Oh, wow, more than 100. Come on, you guys are amazing. This is excellent. Okay, my patient, someone says. Fantastic. Okay. What about known people? How many known people did you follow up for networking purposes? You know, like mentors or peers in your work? Some, but not enough. 22, 15, 20. Great. Okay, very 70 plus for network 10. So very varied numbers, from the very low numbers to very, very impressive numbers out there. And last question, how many hours did you spend networking and relationship building, intentional networking and relationship building in the last, let's say, week, because you guys are very impressive. So in the last week. 4 to 5 weekly, 3, 0, 0, 1, 2, less than 4 hours, 6 hours. Wow, 27 hours. That's impressive. Wow. Okay. Great. I'm loving this. You guys are on fire. Fantastic. Okay. This is your baseline. And for those of you who are, you know, like plus 30 and so on, your baseline is great. I mean, keep it there. You're doing great. For those of you where you realize that your baseline is a little bit low, my goal after this talk is that for the next months, you're going to increase those numbers. Okay, great. So today, what I want to help you with is to first understand common challenges in accessing opportunities, whether these opportunities are jobs, the positions in organizations where you want to be, internships, fellowships, whatever those opportunities are. Those common challenges, I like to group them into two. There's many, but two are very key, and I don't think we talk about those enough. One is what I call the iceberg effect, and the other is what I call the gatekeeper effect. The second thing I want to do is to help you reframe networking. Thankfully, the new generation has a different relationship to networking, but there's still a bit of, you know, networking can have a bad reputation, let's put it that way. So I'm going to try and bust some myths about what networking can mean to you and how you can reframe it so it works for you. And the last thing is that you guys have amazing networking numbers, right? We did that baseline. You guys are doing great. The question here is, are you doing this strategically, or is it a bit random, ad hoc? When you leave university, when you're not in a job that requires reaching out to several different stakeholders, all of a sudden our networks shrink. And we need to be very intentional about continuing to build and feed and nurture those networks. So we're going to talk about how you can develop a networking strategy for your career development going forward. Okay. So basically, my ultimate goal is, as usual with all the people I mentor, to help you develop a meaningful career in public health policy, wherever you are, and whatever your goal is. Great. So what are the challenges in accessing opportunities? What are those iceberg and gatekeeper effects that I'm talking about? Here's an iceberg. When you go to LinkedIn or to, Glassdoor, or to any of these places where jobs and fellowships and opportunities get posted, you're seeing the tip of the iceberg, the part of the iceberg that is above the water. And everybody else is seeing this tip of the iceberg. Have you seen those pictures of icebergs where there's like a ton of penguins on top of the iceberg? It looks a little bit like that, like very crowded space. Meanwhile, underneath the water, there's this huge piece of the iceberg that very few people are able to see. And this piece of the iceberg are the jobs and the opportunities that never get advertised. They don't get advertised for several reasons. First is because they already have someone for that position. Second is because organizations advertise them internally. And third, sometimes it's because those positions did not exist, but they had a volunteer or someone who came knocking at the door who was like, oh, I would love to help. I'm very good at this and that. And they're like, oh, this person is great. I want to create an opportunity for this person because we want to retain them, right? So all of those that underwater world, depending on the country and the city that you're in, can be much bigger than the above the water piece of the iceberg. But it exists in every country in the world. We can like it or dislike it or think that this is not transparent. There's a lot of organizations that have policies that mean that they need to post and advertise every single position that they have. Still, sometimes there's already a pre-agreement on who is going to get this, right? So we can dislike this, we can disagree with this, but it's still a reality. And in the world of health policy, there are opportunities for networking and organizing and collaborating, again, that are above the water, but a lot of those talks are happening below the water. So you want to access those networks as well, okay? The gatekeeper effect is a bit different. When you're looking for jobs, when you're looking for fellowships, when you're looking for internships, what usually happens if you are going through that top of the iceberg approach, the jobs or the positions or the opportunities that get advertised, you're usually going through what I call gatekeepers. These are people with great intentions. It's normally the HR people, the human resources people in an organization, but their job is to keep the gate closed and let in a very small trickle of selected individuals. And that gate is also today the automated systems that are used to scan through CVs, right? So those are the people that you're reaching out when you fill out a job application, when you fill out a fellowship application. It's not your peers. It's not the people who speak your same language as health policy, public health, etc. Okay? That it's not a bad thing. It's just the way the system is set up, and it's set up that way for a reason. So I have nothing against HR people. I know a lot of lovely people in HR, but these people are not your peers. Their job is to keep people out and let in a very small selection, okay? The question is always, who should be you talking to instead? You want to be talking to your peers in that organization if you want a job in that organization. They speak your same language. they can see your value much easier than if you're going through an HR process, okay? So these two effects, the iceberg effect and the gatekeeper effect, can be solved in the same way. And that is through networking. And that's why we're talking about networking today. So let's move on to this piece about reframing networking. There are some common beliefs that I come up against over and over again when I talk about networking that I've summarized here. The first one is that, well, you know, if I reach out to someone on LinkedIn for help, I never get an answer. I get ghosted. There's no help. Like people, and then so that sort of consolidates into a belief that people don't want to help. There's also this belief, I feel that it's less in the younger generation than in my generation, but that networking is a bit sleazy. It's like, oh, you know, everybody has an agenda. People are talking to me because they have an agenda, or I'm talking to people because I have an agenda. So it feels very transactional. And, you know, a lot of us are in public health or in health policy because, you know, it agrees with our values and we want to do good in the world. So that sleaziness, that transactional piece feels like a bit icky, right? So I'm going to talk about, you know, how to bust this myth and how to make networking work for you. The third thing I hear a lot is like, oh, networking events, they're just a waste of time. I go and I talk to people and then nothing happens, or I go there and I feel uncomfortable and, you know, people are talking to me, but looking, you know, on the back of my shoulder to see who they're going to talk to next. There's no real connection. I hear all of these things. And then the last one, which is, I think it's very true, and I'm not an introvert, but I have a lot of friends who are and a lot of colleagues who are, it can be very hard when you're an introvert. Like a networking event, I'm not a very introverted person. I'm there in the middle, but I go to a networking event and I'm exhausted by the evening, right? So for someone who, you know, really wants their privacy and so on, this can be very challenging. Now that's absolutely true. But we're going to talk about what we can do about that. Here are some good reads recommendations. Karina, I was trying to upload them to the file that you have, but I was not allowed to do that. So hopefully you guys can do that after this.
Sure.
I have a list of resources at the end as well, but you'll also see them when you download the presentation. So that's fine. So let's tackle the first one. People don't want to help. And I love to give this example from an experiment that was done in New York City. So here's the experiment. Okay, let's put ourselves in the situation. So for those of you who you probably, everybody has heard about New York City. We've all heard about this is such a, you know, competitive place. People are always running, people are always busy. It feels very, very stressful place, right? Okay, you are in the middle of New York City. You have no phone and you need to make a call. You ask a stranger to use their phone. How many strangers do you need to ask before someone lends you their phone? Can you type in the chat? What's your best guess is? 20, 7, 5, 5, 10, maximum 2, 2, 2, 1, 1. Oh, very nice. Okay, at least 3, 20, 0. Okay, that's weird. 10, 2, 5. Okay. So very wide range of numbers, but very high numbers, right? The majority of you are putting it around 5. It turns out someone actually did this experiment. And the average number of strangers that you need to ask for someone to lend you a phone in the middle of New York, very busy New York City, is 2. It took participants in a study only 2 tries to get a random stranger on the street to lend them their phone to make a call. So what this means to me, and there's plenty of examples, I'm using this one because I just found it a lot of fun. What this means to me is people are more willing to help than what we give them credit for. And that's on us. So if you are self-censoring yourself from asking for help, it's on you, right? Yes, there's people who's going to say no. There's also a lot of people who are going to say yes. And it's very important about the piece around how you ask for help and what type of help do you ask for. If you reach out to a total stranger on LinkedIn that works in an organization where you want to work, and you send them your whole CV and a one-page introduction to yourself and say, hey, random stranger, I really love your organization. I want to work there. Can you get me a job there? What is the response going to be? I mean, if they say no, you get lucky. Most people will totally ignore such an email. It feels just wrong. It feels like an attack. It feels like, who is this random person, trying to asking me for a job? What is this about, right? I don't know them. I don't owe them anything. That is not the right ask. So it's also about how we ask, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. Okay. Okay, so this all comes from a book that I really recommend. I'm going to talk about in a minute, but you can't raise I don't know if you can raise your virtual hands. I can't see you, but type yes if you're better at giving help than at asking for help. Yes, yes, no, yes, 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 yes. Okay, lots of yeses, some no's. Yes, yes, yes. Okay, yeah, me too. I'm very good at giving help, so good at asking for help. It turns out we're not alone out there, people. Seems like the majority of the people have our same problem. Most of us are better at giving help than at asking for help. I really recommend that you read this book. All you have to do is ask, especially if you're like me. Because it turns out that the author and a lot of other organizational psychologists have shown that people who are very successful tend to score higher on both giving and asking for help than the average person. Okay, so it's not just enough about being good at giving, it's also very important to be good at asking. And it turns out these two skills are extremely important in networking and relationship building, right? So here in this graph, I've just reproduced a graph from this book. The average person scores around 3, a little bit over 3 for giving, and a little bit above 2 for asking, while the most successful people score well over 4 for giving and around 4 for asking. This is like a test that they've used and studied a lot, and you can take that test, and it was part of the assessment that you were supposed to do before coming today. I hope you did it. If you did, you know your own numbers, and now you know why that test was important today. So basically, for relationship building, it's very important to be good at both things. And this is a skill we can develop, right? It's not like you're born being good at giving or good at asking. It's a skill we can develop like anything else. Okay. So, yeah, people don't want to help. Okay, people want to help. At least some people want to help, but you need to ask, and you need to ask in the right way. What is that right way? We'll come back to that, but it's about making it easy for the other person to say yes. I get a lot of LinkedIn messages from people who I don't know, and I'm very willing. I love mentoring young people. I'm really willing to give time to talk to young people, to hear what they want, to give them a couple of tips on where to go as much as I can. But we all have limited time. We all have jobs. We all have families, right? So when someone sends me like a 2-page CV plus a 1-page introduction, that already takes me 15 minutes or 20 minutes to read, right? If I get 10 of these a day, how can I say yes? I wouldn't have time to work, right? So it's not that we don't want to help. It's also about how other people make it easy or not for you to say yes. Well, other times I get a message from someone who has been following us on LinkedIn for a while and say, hey, they send me just 2 or 3 lines message saying, hey, Candela, I heard your presentation when you were talking at the London School, and I've been following Alanda ever since. I really like your posts. I have, a couple of very specific questions. around my career. Would you have 10 minutes to talk to me? And when would be the most convenient time for you? That's an easy ask. That's an ask I can say yes to more easily, right? And if I can't, because I really don't have the time, I have this, like, every quarter I give this webinar. So I can point that person to come into the webinar and ask their questions then, right? So I have more possibilities of helping out when they make the request easier for me, right? Let's go on to the next one. Networking is sleazy or transactional. The way I like to reframe networking is around relationship building, which is actually the title of this talk, networking as relationship building. We build relationships with people without an agenda. When you come with an agenda, normally people can feel it. And some agendas are okay. Young people asking for advice on their career development, that's okay. People asking strangers for a job, that's very transactional, right? At least I feel that way. So the way I like to think about it is like, Dory Clark, in one of the books that I recommend in the resources, talks about long-term infinite horizon networking. And I love that phrase. You don't know where this relationship is going to go. You don't know if you'll get anything out of it, but you're building it because you find the other person interesting, because you find the work that they're doing interesting, because you know that maybe you don't like the person, but you know that that person, if you're working in health policy, has different opinions from yours, and it's important to create bridges with people that have different opinions. And in the world of today, I think that's even more important. So it can be a lot of reasons why you put in the effort to build those relationships, okay? But it's non-transactional. And if you do something for that person, they might not do something back for you, but they might help a third person, right? It's this pay it forward mentality that I think just makes it very beautiful for all of us to keep building those relationships. I don't expect the people who I mentor to give anything back to me, but I would expect them to spend some time mentoring others, right? Because it's that pay it forward as we go mentality. And this is basically also, as I said, about becoming a good giver and a good asker for help, right? So you need to learn what to ask for and how. One of the best asks you can always do is ask for advice. It turns out human psychology, right? We all love to give advice. And not all, but the majority of us just love to give advice. It's something we'd like to do. We tell our friends, that relationship you're in, that's not good for you. This is what you should do instead. We love giving advice, right? So asking for advice is actually a very easy ask. People can spend 5 to 10 minutes giving you advice, right? But exactly how you frame that ask for advice is also important. If you come to me and you say, hey, I am finishing my master's in health policy, and I just wanted to ask for your advice of what to do next. What am I going to tell? I have no background, no clue. That is too wide an ask. How can you make that ask more specific? How can you make that person feel that they are the most important person to give you advice, right? So, Candela, I'm thinking about going into consulting. I've read your bio, I've read your LinkedIn, and I see that you've been doing health consulting for many years. What would be your 2 best tips for someone finishing a master's in public health who wants to go into consulting? That is much more specific. That is much easier for me to answer, right? So learn what to ask for and how, right? Very important, do your homework about the other person, right? If you are asking me things that if you Google or if you ask ChatGPT, you can get, the whole wisdom of the internet in 2 minutes, like, why are you asking me, right? It just feels lazy. You're asking me to do your homework for you. So a lot of people don't feel comfortable with that. And, people are busy, right? So sometimes people say no or don't answer, not because of bad faith, but because they have a ton of things. The more responsibility someone has, the crazier their inboxes look like, right? So if I hear a lot of my interns saying, oh, I reached out to this person as you suggested, but they didn't answer. Reach out again. Do it at least 3 times in a very kind manner. Corina did exactly that, right? She reached out to me, and it was crazy period. The end of last year, my inbox was on fire. It was just crazy. And I was like, I basically just skimmed through her email very fast. I was like, oh, I'll deal with this later. Later became a month later. If she hadn't reached out to me again, I wouldn't be here today. And I was like, oh, this is lovely. Of course I want to participate, but it's not bad faith. It's just, the craziness of work. So don't take it personally if people don't answer your message. Just try again. I think, 3 times is like a good average of tries. And then try different channels. Maybe on LinkedIn, maybe they're more present on LinkedIn. Maybe they're more present. Maybe it's easier by email, right? So try different things. Okay. Great. So the last one is networking events are not the last one, the third one. Networking events are a waste of time. Well, how can we make them work for us? Last year, in our organization, Alanda, we started exploring building a social impact project. But mostly what we do is consulting and training. And we wanted to start our very first social impact project. I'm Mexican, so I wanted to start this project in Mexico, but I had no idea what I was doing. I had no idea. Like, I'm not in that space. I'm in the humanitarian and development space, right? So it's like, what should I do? And then I started researching a little bit, and I found out that the Skull World Forum is one of the most important forums for social impact work, social impact projects, social impact environments. I was like, okay, great. So now what? And what we did is we looked at the list of attendees, we curated that list of attendees, and we said, okay, who is working in Latin America? Who is working on social determinants of health? Who is working in access to health? This is the people that I want to talk to and connect with. So after doing that homework, and that took hours and hours, after doing that homework, I sent an email. We found the emails of these people or their LinkedIn accounts, and we sent them a message saying, hey, I sent them a message saying, hey, I'm going to be in Skull. Would you have time for a quick cup of coffee? I'm very interested in what your organization does. And I wrote 1 or 2 very specific questions about what they did in their organization. And I'd love to hear more about your projects. And then I had a 2-line introduction into who I was and why I was going to be at Skull. This is the new thing that we're getting into. I'm trying to understand what others are doing in this space. It would be super useful for me to hear from your projects, right? Send about 20 such emails. About 5 to 7 replied. And I actually got to meet 3 of those people. So it's a lot of work for 3 people that I connected with. But then what happened is that other people who had been very busy during the Skull World Forum actually reached out to me, and I connected with them later. So about out of 20, maybe I connected with 7 of those people directly. For me, it's pretty good. And then, I don't go there without a plan. I go there and I know that I'm going to meet these people. And then I know the other names of the people that I want to connect to that I didn't manage to get a yes from during my email work. So I'm looking out for them and seeing, can I catch them while we're, waiting to get into a session? Can I catch them after their session? I come with a much more targeted approach. That works for me. I have a very hard time going up to a presenter after the presentation when everybody's trying to talk to them and saying, hey, excuse me, can I talk to you for a minute? That's not me. I feel very uncomfortable doing that. There's people who feel very comfortable. Great. If that's your approach, that's what works for you. But if you prep, you can do really good out of those networking events. You don't need to talk to 100 people. If you talk to 3 and then you continue building those relationships, if you talk to 3 and then don't follow up, then your effort is wasted. If you talk to 3 and then keep building that relationship through email, through LinkedIn, through whatever, then it's worth your while, okay? And then it's hard when you're an introvert. So my business partner is an introvert. So I'm going to just parrot what she said, mostly. Create your own rules. Basically, what works for you? Does it work better to do a one-on-one chat? Then ask people for a one-on-one virtual coffee. Not an hour, 10 minutes. Start with 10 minutes, okay? Play to your strengths. Something that I like to do, and I got this idea from an introvert actually, is to organize small dinners. It works like this. Say Karina and I live in the same city. I'm like, hey, Karina, we're going to do this. We're going to set up a time and a place in a small pizza place or whatever, something that is not, that is affordable, easy, within reach, whatever it is. You can even do a picnic in the park if you prefer. And then I say, you bring 3 friends and I'll bring 3 friends from the, public health environment or whatever. And we all meet for dinner. These people don't know each other. I know my 3 friends and Karina knows her 3 friends, but she doesn't know my 3 friends and I don't know hers. So all of a sudden, you have a small environment of people who you might not know, but your friend knows. So there's an implicit transfer of trust. And you can control that environment. You can say, hey, why don't we start with a small round of introductions? Can you say your name, your organization? Why are you working in health policy? What are you passionate about in health policy? You can moderate that space. It's your space. All of a sudden, you have control. And this works very well for some introverts, right? So yeah, another thing my business partner says, and is that she always brings what she calls a wing woman or a wingman to networking events, right? So what they do is they introduce each other to other people. It's much easier if I come and I come with Luca and I say, hey, let me introduce you to Luca. He works at EuroNet and he does this and this, and he's great at this, right? And then Luca introduces me and says, hey, I would like you to meet Candela. It's a lot easier when someone else introduces you, right? Unless you're very extroverted. So there's a lot of strategies that you can use to play to your strengths. You don't need to play by other people's rules. What are the rules that work for you when you're networking? Use those ones, okay? How am I doing time-wise? Oh, great. So this is what I call the touch points framework. And this is something that I just made up, okay? But basically, it doesn't work if it's a one-off thing. You don't build a relationship with anyone, with a romantic partner, with your brother or sister, with family, with friends, through a single one-off encounter. That is not how it works. Relationships are built through seeing the name of that person or seeing that person repeatedly, right? So that is the touch points framework. That's what you want to create. So this is just one example, and you can build your own examples and you can build your own framework on how you want to do this online, because most of us are doing this online anyways, right? So, I've read that this person is doing really interesting things in this organization that I'm very keen to learn more about. So I comment on their posts on LinkedIn. And then, next I send them a request to connect saying, hey, I heard that, I send a note. Hey, I heard, I really liked your post. It made me think about A, B, and C. I'll keep an eye out for your next post. Something very friendly. You're not asking for anything, right? You're giving them something. You're giving them a compliment because, their post just triggered something in your mind. Great. Next, that's twice they've seen my name. Next, I comment on a few more posts, and then a week or so later, I send a one-on-one request. hey, I would really love to connect with you. I am looking into doing more work in the access to health side. I'm very interested in what you're posting and the work you're doing in your organization. Would you have 10 minutes for a virtual call? And you might send one or two very specific questions. And you make it easy for them to say yes, because you send, you send like a scheduling chat, like Calendly or Zoom or whatever. You can find a time that works for you in this link. Otherwise, just send me whatever times work for you. Or you send them, two very specific time points and then say, Friday, I'm free all day, anytime that works for you. Make it very easy to say yes. Busy people dread the back and forth of trying to figure out a time to meet. So avoid that at all costs, right? You send this request for a 10-minute chat, very specific ask, very small request. They say yes, and then you send them a pre-meeting email saying, hey, tomorrow we're meeting, I'm very excited. These are the two more specific questions that I have for you. I really appreciate that you're taking time out of your busy schedule to meet with me, right? And then you actually talk to them in those 10 minutes, you hit it off, and then you send a thank you note. By that time, they've seen your name and they've connected with you 5 or 6 times already. That is how you build a relationship. And then people get stuck, and people, like, my interest ask me, well, what do I do later? Like, how do I keep going? How do I keep building that relationship? Well, in a natural way, you keep commenting on their posts or resharing their post. Or maybe they told you to talk to this person, and then, a month later, you actually talk to this person. So you say, hey, I just wanted to send you a quick update that I actually talked to the person you recommended. It was super useful. Thank you so much. 6 months later, you send them an article. I read this article and I thought of you because of what we discussed. You reshare a post with your thoughts, and then maybe 1 year later, hey, can we do a catch-up, a 20-minute catch-up, right? By this time, you've built a relationship with this person. By this time, you might be able to ask for a bigger favor, saying, hey, I'm changing positions, or I'm looking for opportunities in this space. If you hear about anything, please think of me and send it my way. You're not asking for a job. You're just asking them to reshare opportunities, but all of a sudden, they know you're open to these type of opportunities, okay? I hope this makes sense. Great, so good to keep in mind. I've talked about all of this, but I'm just sort of summarizing them here. Do your homework on the person. Do your due diligence. Listen first. Don't come into a 10-minute chat or a 20-minute chat and make it all about you, right? Make it about what you want to ask from the other person. Listen first and then ask smart questions. That's what we all love. It's very easy. Just think about what you like. Do you like it when another person is doing all the talking and not listening to you? We normally don't, right? So just try to put yourself in the other person's shoes. Speak about yourself. It's important. So learn how to introduce yourself very specifically for what you want to accomplish in that conversation very shortly. If you can, find a warm lead. For example, if I want to meet with Luca, I'll probably reach out to Corina and say, hey, I'm really interested in what Luca is doing. Would it be okay if I say, if you could introduce us, right? A warm lead increases your chances of talking to that person by, I don't know the numbers, but let's say, a 50% increase easily. Warm leads are very important. Whenever you can, find a warm lead. And then ask for something, as I'd said, but make it easy. Ask for advice, ask for new connections. If you are working in public health, you've probably heard about snowball sampling in your qualitative research methodologies. Snowball sampling is when one person leads you to the next, who leads you to the next, who leads you to the next person you're going to interview. It's similar. If for every person you talk to, you say, hey, based on what we talked about today, who do you think I should talk to next? All of a sudden, you're using snowball sampling, and your qualitative research professor is going to be very happy about that. And pro tip, you can also use that opportunity to get a warm lead. You say, who do you think I should talk to next? And then when they give you a name, you say, hey, can you connect us? Or can I say that you recommended that I talk to them? And then when you reach out to that person, you say, hi, Luca, Corina recommended that I talk to you. It's no extra effort for Corina. I'm not asking her to connect us. I'm just saying to Luca, someone we both know recommended that I talk to you. That is a big door opener, huge door opener. And then give if you can. We've been talking about the asking part, but remember the giving part. What can you give? And it's not because someone is in a very high up position or much more senior to you that you can't give anything. They might be looking to, they might be wanting to come to Mexico. And it's like, oh, you're coming to Mexico City. Let me recommend some good places to visit, some of my favorite museums. Easy peasy, no extra work for me. Lovely thing to do for the other person. Or the person mentions something that they are passionate about, that they're working about, and you happen to know someone working in that space. Oh, I know this person in that space. If it's of interest, I'm happy to connect you, right? You can reshare a post. You can reshare an article that they wrote. You can, just show that you were listening. I think that's the important part. That's where we can find opportunities to give. And as I said, you might be able to pay it forward, right? You might not be able to do something for this person, but you can always pay it forward. Great. And the last piece, the piece most people don't do, is your networking strategy. How do we bring all this together in a strategic way? This is my networking cheat sheet. Basically, I write down on a net the position and their position and organization. Where do I know them from? Why connect? Why do I want to connect with them, or why am I building a relationship with them? Whether it's like a potential warm lead, or like how am I connected to them, or how can I start that connection to them? Do I have a warm lead? Do we know someone in common? You can write your reach out strategy, right? If you haven't connected with them before, how are you going to do this? You can brainstorm it in advance. I can connect through LinkedIn. I can send an invite for coffee. They're going to be at this event. I'm going to go and talk to them. I have a warm lead. I need to talk to my warm lead first. What's your strategy? And then what is your ask going to be? Think about your specific ask as you do your due diligence about them. And you can also add a column about what you know about them. And this is as you continue building that relationship. Oh, they have 2 kids. They're going to travel to Guatemala in the next month. Let me just tell them about some good places to visit in Guatemala. Whatever it is that you want to remember, put it on your spreadsheet, okay? And then build your networking strategy. You guys are doing great in the number of people you're connecting to. Is this strategic, right? Are you meeting people at random, or are you meeting people that you really want to connect to? What are your networking goals for the next 3 months? What are your networking goals for the next month? How many people you want to connect with? How many people do you want to reconnect with, and why, right? And how are you going to achieve each of these goals? So for example, if I'm going to school again this year and I want to talk to 10 people, 10 new people, I know that I need to send 30 emails, right? So I need to, get down to business and do my homework. So how are you going to achieve each of these goals? If you want to organize your very first dinner, who is going to be your partner in crime to bring some friends as well, etc. So what I would love to end up with before the questions is, what do you want to commit to? If this rings a bell, if this presentation ringed a bell for you, if it made sense for you, and you want some accountability, now's the time for it. So type in the chat. Do you want to commit to meeting a number of new people? Do you want to commit to spending a number of hours doing networking? Whatever it is, if you want some accountability, just type it in the chat. As a physiotherapist interested in health policy and NCD prevention, how can I position my clinical experience as an asset rather than a limitation? What gaps should I fill before applying for policy-focused fellowships, internships? Okay, here is a wake-up call, people. Other people are not as interested in your CV as you think they are. I am sorry to be the bearer of this news, but those are limitations in your own mind, right? If you're interested in health policy and you can learn about health policy through a course, through a free online course, through a diploma, through a certificate, whatever it is, and you can show those competencies, or you can start volunteering at a job, people are not going to go down and dig and say, oh, she's a clinician, she's a physician, she's not the right person, or he's not the right person, right? Like it's not gonna work that way. Today we have the great advantage through LinkedIn and through social media in general to position ourselves the way we want. If people read your about section on LinkedIn, if they read your summary, that's great. And that's where you can position not what your past is, but what you want your future to be. So that summary section on your LinkedIn, that about section on your LinkedIn, and that summary section on your CV needs to be about where you want to go. And the beauty of relationship building is that if you build relationships by presenting yourself as, this is where I want to go, I'm interested in health policy and NCD prevention and so on, people are not going to go and dig too much into your CV. That is the truth. So it's all about your own mindset work. You are believing that that is a limitation. Definitely go out and do courses and prepare yourself and fill those gaps, but change that mindset. When you're building relationships, it's all about the future you. It's all about where you want to go. That's how you present yourself. Okay. What factors contribute to the younger generation potentially viewing networking as less icky or agenda-driven? That's a good one. You guys are the younger generation. You tell me. I don't know. I don't know, to be honest. I haven't read anything about it. This is just my impression to talking to people. We give courses to people, in their 30s, 40s, 50s, and then we give courses to people in their, 20s, early 20s that are just out of their masters. And I see the difference, but this is my observation, so it might be wrong. May I ask whom I could reach out to besides peers? They might not be capable of handling the CVs, etc. You can reach out to anyone who you find interest on LinkedIn. So use LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a great tool. You don't need the paid version. Don't use the paid version. Not necessary. Use the free version very strategically. Follow people you find interesting. Read what their thoughts are. So don't do massive numbers, just do more specific to where you want to go, to what your goals are. If you're studying, or if you studied, your professors, just find that so many students don't take advantage of the amazing networking opportunities while they're studying. I know it's super busy. You're up to here in homework, you're up to here in exams. I know, but it's a great opportunity to connect with your professors. Ask your professors are there to help you. I mean, that's their job description. So use it to your advantage. It's like, oh, I'm interested in, professor, whatever. I'm interested in health policy. Do you know someone that I could talk to see how that work looks like in real life? I want to figure out if, the real life version of what I imagine is something that is for me, right? Too. It's brilliant. Use your professors. If you're out of university already, go back and talk to your professors as much as possible, okay? And don't disregard your peers. In 10 years, many of your peers are going to be in very interesting positions in very interesting organizations. So don't disregard your peers, okay? It's insane what happens 10 years later, okay? And where people go to in their careers 10 years later. So stay connected to your peers as well. What's the most effective way to approach a potential mentor? How can you build a mentorship relationship that is sustainable over time rather than just a one-off conversation? Thank you for asking that question. Thank you so much, Isra. Okay, it's a lot of pressure to us as mentors if you have a single mentor. Don't do that. What you want to build is what I call a board of mentors. Okay, so you want to have a number of different mentors. First, because what I say, it's not the full truth. This is my opinion. This is coming from my own experiences, okay? So you need to have a board of mentors that will give you a more 360 overview and a more complete set of opinions than a single person can ever do. Okay, so build a board of mentors. And the way you do this is not by reaching out to me and say, Candela, do you want to be my mentor? No. The way you do this is by relationship building, right? So you keep building those relationships and you keep reaching out to that person for advice. If they gave you advice once, I mean, not every week, come on, people are busy, but every 6 months, every year, you say, hey, could we do a catch up? I would love to hear more about where your research is today, what's happening in your organization these days. Do you have 10 minutes to do a catch up? Once you've built those touch points and you've built those relationships, doing a catch up once a year or once every 6 months, it's great. And it's a great opportunity for you to get mentored without ever telling that person that they're your mentor. Sneaky, not sneaky. But it's just more natural, it's more organic. There's a ton of mentorship programs. I'm sure EuroNet and YWFPHA, you might know more about this than I do, but there are a lot of networking mentorship like official mentorship programs that you can also tap into. But it's very easy to do that through relationship building. And again, tap your professors. Is there someone you admire that you would like to keep coming to for advice and questions? Do that. For advice, but what after that, I still did not get the position I need in the organization. What are the next steps to grow this relationship? Well, you were not asking for a job in the first place. So if you were asking for a job, your chances of, building that relationship are less. This takes time, but what research shows is that most opportunities, job opportunities, romantic relationship opportunities, fellowship opportunities, all opportunities you can think about actually come from what organizational psychologists call your weak links, not your closest friends and family, but people who you know, and I mean professionally, for example, in this case, but that are not super close to you. So, you just need to you can't ask a person for a job upfront when you don't know them. That is just transactional, right? But when you build that relationship after a year having all these touch points, it is okay to say, hey, now I'm finishing my master's and I'm looking for opportunities in health policy. Do you know someone? I want to talk to people who work in this environment to understand what the day-to-day looks like. Do you have someone that I can talk to, right? You're not asking for a job, you're still asking for advice, but you're putting it out there that you're open for a job. You see the difference? And then there are many cases where I've heard that, it's like, oh yeah, I know that this person is looking for someone. For a junior position, you might want to talk to them. I can't promise that will happen. That's not how this works. It's long-term, infinite horizon networking, right? But the opportunities will come to you from your network, a lot of them, I promise. Just keep building those relationships. Into global health related jobs, policy research after graduation, but this seems challenging. Mostly, I have attracted high-level job offers from reputable organizations and have proceeded to the interview stages, but I have not ended up having the offers. I'm an introvert, and I recognize this could be my major setback. What tips would you advise on how I can navigate to attract job offers that suit my experience and qualifications? Same advice through that relationship building. So it's great that you're getting these offers, but it seems like your challenge is at the interviews place. So if you have the possibility, reach out to a coach that can help you through that interview process. And if you don't have the possibility, because coaches are very expensive, grab a couple of your peers, of your friends, but not family, not your grandma, okay, not your dad, just people who work in the industry, especially if you have some friends or peers who work in human resources, and practice those interviews with them. What is great for any interview is that you come extremely well prepared. When I say these, my interns say, oh yeah, I've read about all the potential interview questions and I'm prepared for them. That's not what I mean by when I say prepared, is do you know that organization very well? Do you know the person who are going to interview you very well? Do you know what they've published, what their frameworks look like? do you know their thinking? And do you know how you can bring value to the work that they're doing? If you can come up with one very specific example of how you can do that, you can say, for example, I've seen that you're starting innovation work in health policy. I believe I can bring a lot of value to that work because I've done A and B and C different things, right? If you know the organization very well, that due diligence is going to take you over that interview step. It's super important. Doing your homework at every step of the relationship building process and the job application process is crucial because most people don't take the time to do that. They go broad, they go for like a bulk strategy instead of going for a specific in-depth strategy. Have a hard time maintaining a network after a networking event. Could you share your insight on how to develop it into a really meaningful network? I feel like I'm talking to a lot of people, but it's very difficult to bring in online or a longer relationship. So as much as possible, don't start at the networking event. As we talked about today, start before, right? Second, when you're at the networking event, go for quality, not for quantity. If you're able to already pre-book a couple of coffees, it's better to do that than to try to talk to 20 people during that networking event, right? Go for depth, not breadth. That's my preferred approach. And then as soon as it's over, like that same evening, have the due diligence, have the discipline to send out that connection request on LinkedIn with a note. Or if you have their card, if you have their email, and it's okay when you meet someone to say, hey, with the QR codes on LinkedIn, can I get your LinkedIn? And then you tap them in. And I'm sending you a connecting request right now. It's the same thing as the exchange of business cards used to be, but now we do it digitally, right? So do that. And don't let the other people add you. You add the other person. Then you have the control to keep building this relationship, right? And then, like the next day or 2 days later after the event, say, hey, I really liked, send a message, do those touch points. I really liked talking to you during the event. I learned this. These were my favorite learnings from the event, whatever it is, but build that connection. And then, a month later, and comment on their post or reshare their post or send them an article related to what you talked about during that networking event. Just keep building those touch points. If you think about them as touch points, it doesn't feel as overwhelming, right? You're not building a relationship, you're just thinking about your next touch point. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. Okay, guys, thank you for all your questions. There's so many. I wish I could continue answering this, but we are at time. If you follow Alanda, we do some webinars. I try to do them 4 times a year. It really depends on the amount of work. And I also answer questions there. So feel free to join. And you will get the notifications if you sign up to our newsletter. Corinna, thank you so much for the invitation. Thank you so much, all of you, for organizing such a fantastic event for young people. I'm very happy I could attend.
Thank you very much, Candela, once again for your availability and for such an inspiring and insightful session. Thank you very much. And I would also like to thank all the participants for your remarkable engagement throughout these 3 days. We hope you found this course valuable and enriching. It's been for us a long and meaningful journey to design and build the course, and seeing your active participation has made it all worthwhile.